only silence remains. Because I have to listen to him, I have to listen to the silence, I have to experience him.
My name is Anuschka Alborzian. I am an empowerment health coach, a spiritual and energy healer, and a subconscious reprogrammer that works with committed souls who are dealing with disharmony in any area of their life to create balance and heal their mind, body, and spirit in order to live life to the fullest in the face of any circumstance. I personally have gone through what I call a rebirth. And to explain what I mean by a rebirth is to be woken up from an autopilot life and really begin to start a whole new life as if being reborn. And I actually celebrate my rebirth day because of the brain tumor journey that I went through in August of 2017. My rebirth day is August 23rd of 2017, where I went into the hospital to get an MRI due to these massive headaches that I was having that were gradually increasing to the point where I began vomiting. And so I went in just to make sure that everything is all good. And instead, they did not let me leave the hospital. And from that moment, that day, August 23rd, the day of my MRI, my life changed forever and for the better. Of course, my initial reaction was shock. I was very healthy, and so therefore I was very surprised to hear that I have a brain tumor. Now, when they surrounded me, there was a doctor and about 9 nurses that surrounded me while we looked at this TV monitor, this monitor that had a scan of my brain on there. All I remember thinking when I saw this avocado-sized brain tumor that had caused the midline of my brain to curve, I just thought, how am I standing here? And everyone else around also looked like complete shock with like deer with headlights in their eyes. And for me, I just remember thinking, how is this possible? I'm pretty healthy. Although I did have to process it a little bit because, again, it's not something that I was expecting at all. I was going in there to get a peace of mind and realize that, oh, it's just migraines. And instead, I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital and I was moved into the ICU room so I can reduce, so they can reduce the swelling of my brain so that I can have surgery 5 days later. For me personally, I really just the way I managed to get through all this and really defy what all the doctors said is there was no way that this was the end of my life. I remember something took over me. I had done a lot of transformation work previous to this diagnosis, which I'm beyond grateful for because I truly believe that's what had me so empowered. And I truly believe that anything is possible and we create our reality. And so I was making phone calls left and right to everybody that I knew that was either in the cancer world or an oncologist or anything, especially those that I had done transformation work with, because I knew that many had completely healed themselves from all kinds of different diseases within their lives. And so that's what I started focusing on. And I started focusing on all the healing while my husband Ashkan was the one that did all the research. I did not want to know anything about this diagnosis. fast forward to 6 weeks later, when they finally got my pathology report. It took 6 weeks. Yes, that was quite a bit of time to wait for it. And they wanted to make sure because of the size of the tumor. And at the time, they had diagnosed it as a stage 3 angio something. I don't remember the label because it got escalated later to a glioblastoma brain tumor of stage 4. And honestly, they got the entire tumor out plus margins. So for me, I just didn't care about the label. I just thought my job is to focus on healing. And so that in itself is what I continued to focus on, even though I will never forget sitting in my surgeon's office when he actually looked at me in the eyes, as well as Ashkan, who was sitting next to me, and said that with the stage 3 diagnosis, he gave what's called a prognosis, which I do not believe in, by the way. I believe prognoses are a predictable future, and no one can predict our future. And of course, it impacted me when he said you have 3 to 5 years to live. Now, I looked him in the eye after my future life flashed before my eyes because I couldn't believe what I just heard. And I kept saying, there's no way. I just knew deep down within me that no, this is not the end of my story. This is not the end of my life. And I continue to look at him in the eyes and say, that's not going to be, watch me. And Ashkan would say the same thing, like, no, doctor, not her. And so then when it got escalated to the stage 4, I said I did not want to hear what they believe the prognosis to be because I'm an individual. I have my own unique thoughts. I have my own unique DNA. I have my own unique fingerprints. I eat uniquely. I do everything uniquely. I'm an individual and I do not want to get lumped into a statistic. And I believe it's these statistics that cause a vicious cycle. The prognosis is this vicious cycle that gets created that causes people to unfortunately lose hope. So, as an advice that I would give people is during such difficult situations, especially if you're diagnosed with something, really just look at what it is, who is giving you a prognosis. And if it's a prognosis, just know that you too are able to completely heal from whatever it is you're dealing with. Because whenever we're dealt with some kind of a difficult life situation, I truly believe it's because it's meant to have us heal. That's already which is within us. That is like whether it's trauma or whatever it is else it is that we've actually been through, and through whatever challenge we're faced with, we're meant to actually heal that deeper wound, that inner child wound. And if it's other types of life situations that may be difficult, that may not be medically like a life altering medical condition, that also can be because you're learning something from it. It really is looking at life as everything happens for my highest good. Everything can technically, there can be a gift in it. So if you can take any situation in life, as difficult as it may be, and take that and say, what can I learn from this situation? Not in it, because while you're in it, all kinds of emotions are going to be running the show. And that's perfectly fine. You got to feel your feelings. The biggest thing I learned through all this is express and release those feelings within. From what I've learned, especially with all the work that I do now as an empowerment coach and spiritual healer, is everything, and subconscious reprogram, is everything lies within our subconscious mind. And if we have a certain subconscious belief, or we have repressed anger and resentment, or even like repressed or suppressed, right? Whether or not you're aware of these emotions, when over time we just keep piling it inside of us, then it's going to manifest in another way, in a physical symptom. And these physical symptoms become messages to that which already lies within us. And every single person that I've either worked with or have talked to that has had some form of cancer, including myself, has had some amount of suppressed or repressed anger and resentment. And so really taking a look and seeing, how can you release all of this? How can you get to a place of forgiveness, peace, non-attachment towards any and every situation and person, and doing the work to do so? That's how you can get your power back, is really looking at it as like, okay, this is something that not to say you to blame yourself, but looking at it as like, I created this physical symptom due to whatever trauma that lies within me. For me, for instance, I'm very aware I had a lot of anger and resentment. And when I realized that through my thoughts, through the suppressed anger and resentment, that this brain tumor came about, that it was my doing in a sense, then that gave me the power to undo it, to heal from it. So that in itself can be very empowering, to look at it as you can do anything with your life and you can create your reality. This has completely changed my life for the better. It's like, if I were to say to people, I tell people this all the time, that it was the best thing that happened to me, although it was the toughest thing that I've ever been through. And the hardest part, honestly, was, oh my gosh, I'll never forget. It was, I went in for August 23rd. I went in for this for the MRI. I had surgery 5 days later on August 28th of 2017. I was out the hospital 5 days after that. And then fast forward to a month later when I finally healed somewhat. And then I went through an entire egg egg retrieval in order to freeze our embryos, because we wanted to do that before I had to do radiation and then chemo to follow. And through all that, I had to be on these seizure meds, which we didn't even know were causing, I was having an allergic reaction. They were causing these rashes to flood my entire body from inside out, from eyes and bottom of feet, everything you can imagine. Every part of my body was just filled with rashes. And we didn't know it was a seizure meds, because the steroids I was on was suppressing it, until once I started tapering off the steroids, is when the rashes took over and I couldn't sleep for 10 nights. And it was the hardest part. There was many hard parts, of course. I would say that was the first time I actually had a thought of like, oh my gosh, what's the point of this? I don't even want to be here right now. The only time, because of how difficult it was. And I just wanted to itch every single part of me. I wanted to scratch my eyeballs out. Of course, through the chemo and everything, there was a lot that I went through in terms of nausea, but I just knew that it was a cycle to go through. We got married. So at the time when we got the diagnosis with Ashkan, we were engaged. And then we actually, the sweetheart he is, I told him, hey, you're not committed to this relationship. You have the option of saying, I can't do this. And I wanted him to make this choice, not feel like he's obligated to stay with me. And he thought about it, of course, and I'm glad he did, because it allowed him to make the choice rather than feeling forced to be in a situation, which I did not want that for anyone. As devastated as I would have been had he made that choice, he actually instead got an appointment to the courthouse, and we got married not even 10 days away, about 2 weeks later, after I got out of the hospital after surgery. And then about 6 months later, we had already been planning a destination wedding. So in between my chemo cycles, we went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and we had a destination wedding, because I was not willing to have chemo get in the way of my magical wedding. So for me personally, I would made sure that was probably the most beautiful part of my journey, that I still got to experience all the beauty of we had our beautiful engagement photo shoot. At the time, I had no hair. I had shaved my head off because of the radiation. And so I had pictures. We had the pictures taken with a wig and also without a wig. So with my bald head. I remember even at my wedding, I ended up taking the wig off towards like the end, because I really wanted to dance the night away. So I would say that was definitely the most beautiful part of my healing journey. And I truly believe that anyone has the option of looking at life and living life to the fullest in the face of any circumstance, because it's all about your choice. And when you choose to live that way, choose to look at life and say, okay, this is not how I imagine things, whatever that may be, and looking at it as like, okay, this is in my highest good. What gifts are going to come out of this? What can I learn from this? Because there's never failure, there's never loss, there's always learning. So you're either winning or learning in life. So take that and apply it to every area of your life. The two words that I would personally describe myself in, which that makes it tough because I would say, let's say three words, because for me, I would definitely feel like I'm a very resilient person and I'm very determined and magical. I would definitely say that is a big part of it, but really determined and resilient are the two. And I kept telling myself that I'm determined. I'm always determined. No matter what it is in my life, I am very determined. And then I get committed based on that. And I just keep pushing through because look, it's never over till it's over. It's never over till the day you stop breathing. So until that day, anything is possible. And that said, you can do the same thing with your life. You can actually take a rebirth, take any situation and turn it into a rebirth.